This was a nice tweet that I just saw that I wanted to start the Market Watch episode with, which was Raoul Paul, who just says, "We are in the midst of the greatest macro trade of all time. Don't mid-curve it." Basically saying there's a lot of people that still don't get crypto. Well, there's two points here. A lot of people that are like, no, this thing doesn't make sense. Why is it going up so much? Are we really having another cycle? Doesn't make sense. And that's mid-curving it, just sort of trying to think too deeply into what this thing is. But if you look at this chart here, it's basically comparing Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and then the NASDAQ and real estate and treasuries and bonds and gold and basically every other asset. And if you look year over year, crypto just absolutely dominates every single year, except for in its bull markets where it gets completely wrecked. But that's okay because it dominates so much in its other years. It's pretty nuts. Just in the last 2 years, Bitcoin up 155% and then 45% so far this year. Ethereum 91%, 48% this year. Solana 922% last year, 16% so far this year. Nothing even comes close. The NASDAQ had 54% last year, so like pretty respectable. Nothing else is like even above 20% other than US large caps, which is basically the NASDAQ. So there's no point to put your money in anything other than crypto at this point because this is just, it is the macro trade of the year or of the decade without a doubt. So just a nice realization when you look at that chart to see what's going on here. But Jay, let's dive into Bitcoin a little bit. ETFs have had a bit of outflows over the last week, which is why, or in part why we had that pullback. But thankfully over the last just couple of days here, so this week, we have made it back into the positives. We are once again getting positive inflows. Not massive numbers like we had 2 weeks ago, but still not so shabby. Can't complain about a couple hundred million coming in on a daily basis into Bitcoin. So we are back up on that. No buys from Michael Saylor over the last week either, which is maybe a little bit strange. However, there is some random wallet. We talked about this one a while ago. They're calling it Mr. 100. This is some, I don't know if it's an institution. We don't know if it's a person. We just know that this person has a lot of money because they're buying 100 Bitcoin basically every day, sometimes even more than every day. They currently own, so they've been doing this for months and months and months. They've just been buying and buying 100 Bitcoin at a time. Every time they make a purchase, it is 100 Bitcoin regardless of the price. It's quite odd. And anyway, they've accumulated 55,700 Bitcoin. And just last week, in 24 hours, they did 18 buys of 100 Bitcoin. So whoever this is just next level bidding on Bitcoin right now. They've become the 13th largest Bitcoin holder. They just don't stop. Every day you wake up, you can look on chain. This wallet just keeps buying. We don't know who it is. There's some speculation from Arkham, whatever that research analyst protocol or whatever they are. I think it's called Upbit or something. I think that might be an exchange. I don't know. We don't know who it is for sure. But either way, someone's still bidding. So that's good. Even if Michael Saylor decides to take a break, which I really don't think he will. But nice to see. And nice that we can track that, eh?
So nice to see. And so not a surprise either. Like we're still so early for the large, government, sovereign wealth funds, institutions are going to be coming in and buying Bitcoin. And so get ready to see more of that in the coming, coming months and throughout the rest of this cycle.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the reason why I think markets are kind of cooling off right now, and it doesn't mean we're going to go down and have this crazy pullback or anything like that. I just think the reason that they're sort of cooling off right now is this Ethereum ETFs. We just don't know what's going to happen. Markets don't like uncertainty. Obviously, getting this approval would be super bullish for the crypto world because once we get this, it's sort of like Bitcoin was one that was great, but Bitcoin doesn't really impact. It does, but not to a full extent impact the rest of crypto, right? Because there's no smart contracts really on Bitcoin. Doesn't have a bunch of other tokens. Once Ethereum gets its approval, it's like, it's just lights on for everything, right? It's like, okay, smart contract platforms, this is like legit. And so it's going to be just nuts for Ethereum and all the tokens on Ethereum. It's going to be nuts for Solana and all the other ecosystems. Bitcoin, like, obviously it matters for crypto at large. It's just a little bit of a different asset. So we're still waiting to see what happens there. And so I think the markets don't know what to do until we get this approval. Though one other thing is we do have the halving occurring in the next month. So that's coming in April. It's actually less than a month now. So there's just a lot of mixed emotions, I think, in the space. And so generally this means we chop. We go up, we go down. I don't think we're necessarily going to have a crazy leg up just yet. If those ETFs get approved, then absolutely. On the news of the ETFs, we talked a bunch about how people don't think it's going to happen anymore. The chief legal officer of Grayscale, he came out just the other day and he put his thoughts down on what's going on with the spot ETF approvals. And most people are saying that it's not going to get approved because there just hasn't been any comments on any of the applications so far Whereas with Bitcoin, it was like back and forth for weeks and weeks. And it was like nonstop. Every day we had new news, and there's just been nothing. It's been crickets. What Craig, the chief legal officer of Grayscale, says is, you know what? I actually think that this isn't a bad thing. I think the reason that there's no comments is because we figured out all the ins and outs for Bitcoin, and Ethereum is basically the exact same. There is no difference. The only difference would be the staking aspect, which probably doesn't get approved anyway. So they probably just approve this thing to be the exact same as how they did with Bitcoin, which means there is no feedback needed. They already know what they're doing. Coinbase takes care of the custody of it all. They understand if it's in kind and how it all works. So like, there's just not a lot to discuss is what his theory is. So he actually thinks that this is completely fine and he's still very positive that this approval will go through. So interesting for those notes to come out. A bunch of people got pretty excited about that because they haven't really said anything, and Grayscale is one of the leaders in this. Although the Bloomberg boys, Eric Balchunas, came back and said, hey, well, that may be true. And that's cool that you think that. We still are keeping it only at 25% odds. So still not looking good from the Bloomberg boys side of things. But again, that's just one person. We have no idea what's really going to happen there. Although one other interesting thing. So there's the no comments from the SEC that people are worried about. And then there's this whole SEC, wagering a campaign against Ethereum as a security. A lot of, big people in the space have come out saying, look, it's not a security. There's tons of reasons to believe it's not. Ether futures, ETF is already approved, etc. But what happened this week was the US government indicted crypto exchange KuCoin. I believe they're an Asian crypto exchange, but they've indicted KuCoin and two of its founders for criminal charges, citing a multi-billion-dollar criminal conspiracy. So something similar to what happened with Binance. Again, don't know what's going to happen with this, but what's interesting is this lawsuit is coming from the CFTC. So there's a governing body, the SEC. That's what deals with securities, basically, right? Then you have CFTC, which deals with commodities. And in this lawsuit, or in this indictment, I guess, the CFTC clearly pointed out that they are involved in this because Bitcoin, Ethereum, and they included Litecoin are commodities. And so that's why they are involved in this lawsuit, and the SEC does not need to be involved in this because these are not securities, so it's not under their jurisdiction. So interesting that this is coming out. There's a bit of a turf war between these two. We want the CFTC to win because obviously we don't want any of these to be considered securities, just a lot more legal stuff if it is. So this is, although it's bad news that an exchange in the crypto world is obviously going through more lawsuits, I think it's fine. We need to get these things all cleaned up and get them regulated anyway, so that's okay. But the bullish news from this is, hey, CFTC is calling Ethereum a commodity, so that again helps our chances. Again, I don't know where this is going to go. We don't know what's going to happen. We got to kind of just let it play out. But this is why I just think markets are going to be up in the air for the next little bit until we see where approvals go.
What's your bet, Kai? You think it's going to get approved on May 23rd?
Look, I have no expertise in this space, so I don't necessarily want to say anything. But yeah, I think it is going to get approved, to be honest.
Yeah,
I just don't see a reason why they wouldn't. And it's because it's the final date, May 23rd. To me, it makes sense that they will. I don't think they do the staking, which Fidelity just actually and a few others have applied for, but I don't see why they wouldn't. Other than you just never know what happens in the government and political world. And I think there was a lot to support Bitcoin. We know Gary Gensler likes Bitcoin, always has, and he just doesn't like Ethereum and everything else. So like maybe there's just some shadiness that goes on, and that would be the reason it doesn't. But otherwise, I think it should.
The reason I think it gets approved is Occam's razor. The simplest answer is usually the answer. And I think we are all we're so excited about this. We're watching it almost too closely that we're expecting something to come out before that would indicate that is either getting approved or not getting approved. And because we're not getting any indication and nothing is coming out, everyone's being like almost freaking out and like throwing a fit about much ado about nothing really, right? Like just because nothing is happening doesn't mean that it's not getting approved. I think it does get approved, and I think they're planning on that. I just don't think they don't want to leak, obviously, any indication of so, and I don't think they're procrastinating. I think they've just already made their decision, so they don't need to do all these meetings and all the things they did last time for the BTC one because they've already done all that stuff. They get it now, so, but hey, look, I could be wrong. Wait and see.